Welcome back. In this video, we are going to be discussing the HPI. The HPI stands for History of Present Illness. This is what the story is, and it is what the patient says happened to them to cause them to come into the ER. To the right of the screen, you can see many HPI templates, and you can choose the most appropriate one. For example, if someone came into the ER with an ankle injury, I would use the ankle HPI. Remember, if you ever have a complaint that comes into the ER and you're not sure which template to use, you can always use the general template. Each HPI is similar with the same components, but will have slight changes to better portray the complaint. Just answer the questions appropriately and accurately. The most important and time-consuming step of the HPI and scribing in general is usually the historian note, which is a component of the HPI. This is where you put the story in detail of what the patient describes. You can find out what works best for you just as long as the HPI is completely accurate. And also note that the HPI in some cases could be multiple paragraphs. As a scribe, you need to make sure that you don't get too bogged down with the HPI. Just enter in pertinent information. So now let's go ahead and move on to an example. So let's concern this chart. Here, the complaint is a pregnancy test, and there's not really an HPI that strikes out to me for that complaint, so I'm going to go ahead and use the general template by clicking on it right here. Up here for the chief complaint, we can just type pregnancy test, and here's our historian note, which I talked about earlier. Here you will just click who is telling you the story. Maybe it's the patient, or EMS, or both, whatever is accurate. And then here you'll type the note of what happened and what the patient is describing to the doctor. So I've already come up with an example. I'm going to go ahead and paste it here, and we can read over it so you'll have a good example of what the HPI should sound like. Male 35, which I got from this corner right here, presents to the ER for need of pregnancy test. Clearly fabricated information. Patient states that he feels that he may be pregnant and has been having abdominal constant pain in the lower abdomen for the past week that has a gradual onset. He's also having nausea but no vomiting or diarrhea. Pain is dull in nature. Exasperated by food and relieved by nothing. No radiation of pain. No other associated symptoms or complaints. So that is just an example of what a historian note would sound like. Obviously this is all made up, but you'll find a way in a system that works best for you. And then we're just going to follow this note down and answer the various questions. So let's say that it's an unknown mechanism. Pain is localized to the lower abdomen. He said he did not have any radiation. So here brings me to another point. When you want to X through something or say that it was not something, you can double click it and that will make it negative. A single click is positive, a double click is negative. Also a left click is positive, a right click is negative. So you can do either option there. And that's throughout all of the charting. Quality he said was dull. Moving on down. His pain scale, I always go only to this pain scale right here, the current pain scale, which you can find the number right up here in the right corner. It's at a 0, so we're going to go ahead and make this a 0. The time course he said was gradual pain that started 1 week prior to arrival. There's been no change and the symptoms are constant. Associated symptoms. He told us nausea. What makes it worse? He said food. So I'm going to go ahead and free text food here. And he said that it hasn't been relieved by anything. So we'll just say nothing there. That's basically all we can say about our HPI. So now that we've got all of our information in there accurately, we just hit this enter button and we will see our HPI be entered in over here to the left side of the screen. Remember that the HPI, or the history of present illness, is what the patient says happened to them. Now this next thing I'm going to say applies to all the videos, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that you should not be afraid to ask the doctor any questions. The doctors would agree that it is better for you to ask a question and get the right information rather than to not ask and have incorrect information. You may have to ask many questions throughout the charts, and that doesn't make you a bad scribe. It makes you an accurate one. So the HPI, which we've just completed, is the first of the 3 main components of the chart. The next video will cover the next 2 components, the review of systems and the physical exam. Thanks again for listening.